Hey, what's up, Elder Scrolls Nation? It's Skullzi here, and I am here with Samantha and Panda.
Hello.
Hey guys.
This is Scribing the Scrolls, Episode 6, the Elder Scrolls 6, and the Elder Scrolls themed podcast, and today we're going to be talking about something pretty interesting. If you haven't seen my recent video, you should watch it now because it kind of goes into a lot of information, too much to repeat here, but essentially there is an NPC in Morrowind that not only correctly predicted the storyline in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, and possibly hinting at the story in the Elder Scrolls 6, whatever it is, and that has to do with an Akaviri invasion that's supposed to happen after the Empire falls after a civil war.
Well, I think they might have done it on purpose, actually fulfilling the prophecy that they set up in Elder Scrolls 3, and maybe hinting to it maybe being fulfilled in Elder Scrolls 6.
I think it sounds interesting from what I've read about Akavir and possible introduction of other races.
Yeah, I would love to see more Akavir in Elder Scrolls. It's always been that mysterious, faraway place that you only mostly read about in a book. However, Akavir has a lot to play with the history of Tamriel. A lot to play. For instance, Akavir invaded us already in the first era, and they actually conquered Tamriel, and there is a Sayesi Emperor. See, I pronounced it right this time. There's a Sayesi Emperor who ruled over Tamriel, and for those who don't know, the Akaviri humans founded the Blades, they found the Riemann Cyrodiil, who Cyrodiil is named after. There's a lot of history made by Akavir here on Tamriel.
So it'd be like a culmination of a lot of the other, hints and promises from the other games. It'd be like, hey, we're finally delivering on this Akaviri thing that we've been hinting at for so long.
Well, and it would make the content leading to clues of Akavir tie in instead of having loose ends in lore.
Yeah, I don't mind Akavir having the mysterious aspect, but I would love to actually see it, and they say they're building up to something epic with the Elder Scrolls 6. They don't have the technology for it yet. It's probably damn near a whole continent, or at least multiple regions, and Akavir would be able to fulfill that perfectly, because if we're in Akavir, would you really just want to see one part of it? I mean, yeah, it'd be awesome, but think about it. You can explore Akavir, or Akavir invades, and maybe you have to defend multiple front lines from the invasion.
I know it sounds stupid, but if they can have all of Tamriel in Elder Scrolls Online, I understand that's MMO, but
yeah.
Why can't they do it for Elder Scrolls 6?
I was just about to say pretty much the exact same thing. Like, it would be the equivalent of an open world game as opposed to just a sandbox experience, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, a big sandbox is still in fact just a sandbox.
Yeah, you're still limited by the walls and the edges of the sandbox. As per, if you were in this big, great, huge world, you get to choose what scenery you see, where you go, your next move.
Yeah, just like in the Final Fantasy franchise.
Now, I would think that they could be waiting for the next level of consoles, because usually games are limited by the current state and current generation of console technology. PCs can always do better, but they want these games to not only be sold on PCs, they want them to be sold on the newest Xbox, the newest PlayStation, and stuff like that. So they're going to probably wait for that new wave to come out, and I hope that those consoles can actually play the whole world, or I'm sorry, the whole continent of Tamriel. Maybe it's not even a continent, maybe it's just a region.
Well, I don't think that's what it is. Look at Dragon Age Inquisition. The map space is incredible. That at least should be semi-comparable.
True.
So I remember playing Final Fantasy VII for PlayStation.
Different franchises, sorry. But
That's cool. And in that game, they allow you to fly around in an airship and go to different areas. And even though the world map isn't what you would call, gigantic, right? It still felt like such a different, more freeing kind of experience, right? And, I think that's what we're all trying to get to is we want a bigger experience, so why not give us all of Nirn? Let us explore everything, right?
That would be really awesome. One thing I think that might be a limiter is Bethesda's own vision. They seem like they like to have areas be as packed with content as possible. They like there to be the quest after every little hill and every cave. There's this, there's that. There's always a little scene here. And for them to do that without losing quality on that spectrum, and make sure every region on all of Nirn or all of Tamriel has a kind of a quality of content, that might limit in terms of technology.
Right, it's asking a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. I know.
I do agree. I mean, even as simple as textures without mods and stuff, I think they're far more realistic than you see in other games.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want
to work into their games.
And I don't think they'd want to sacrifice that, because then they'd have to reuse the same stone texture in elsewhere as they used in Akavir or whatever, and that wouldn't make sense lore-wise, so they wouldn't feel comfortable doing it.
Right.
So,
they probably don't want to take very many shortcuts like that.
I would love to see something like that, though. Even if it's all of Tamriel in Elder Scrolls 6, that would be amazing. Even if it's 2 or 3 regions, because I want to see the transition traveling between regions in terms of the terrain, the culture, just the people. It would feel like you're in this larger world. Yeah, the weather, just the overall vibe. And Bethesda does a good job at making you feel the certain vibes of the regions you're in. It would make you feel like you're in a larger fantasy world, and seeing Elder Scrolls in that point of view, to where things are drawn back even further, would be allow you to just see how awesome the Elder Scrolls world is. There it is. So do you think that we'd actually travel to Akavir to stop the invasion, or do you think it would more be like 2 or 3 regions on Tamriel defending against the invasion? Which do you think would be more likely to happen? It would be awesome to see Akavir, but at the same time, I'd feel like they may, instead of just leaping to a new continent, they may just give us multiple regions and nations to go forth. That's like the next step.
It depends on how rushed they feel.
Oh, they don't feel rushed, it looks like.
Right. Right. But who really knows?
Yeah, that's true.
How hard are they working behind the scenes?
I mean, they have 2 studios. I think that one of the studios is working on the Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, they can say they're not all they want to. They've told us Fallout 4 wasn't even started yet, and then, oh wait, months later, here's the whole game for you guys. You know what I mean? So, and it's not that they're doing it to be shitty, like we said in the last podcast. It's hype control. That's all it is. They're not trying to hate on you guys. They're trying to make sure that you're as hyped for the game, not only so, yeah, there's a business side to it so they can get more money and more sales, but also so you enjoy it more. I mean, that's really what it is. If you've been waiting for this game and you've already seen like all these different regions and all these videos and you know all this stuff already, and then you finally get to play the game, yeah, it's gonna be fun. But if you've only seen that 30-second trailer that they released a month before you bought the game, it's gonna feel like a better experience.
For the real graphics.
Yeah.
They could maybe, if they did that, have a starting zone on Tamriel, and then once you get out of that starting zone is when you head over to Akavir. And if you're gonna go do the whole continent, who sides with the
Sayesi?
The Sayesi.
I guess it's never been said in game, so people can just.
What race? Well, whatever race that is, I can't remember.
They're the vampiric serpents.
I know, but they have. I thought there was a race that sided with them.
The Sayesi? No. You may be thinking of the Kapotun, who are the tiger
I know
race.
The tiger people
and they
are
sided with
the monkey people.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh. There wasn't anybody else. Oops.
No.
Yeah.
There's,
and then there were the human
But anyway,
Akaviri
you
slaves of the Sayesi, right?
Yeah, you could go to Akavir, maybe start in one or two of the races zones, start out either like kind of gather their forces to go against the Sayesi, or they could make it shorter and sweet and just head you right into vampire hell.
If they did a game like that, I would want to be able to choose one of the Akaviri races. Like, let me choose the monkey race. What are they called?
No, what are they called? Hang on one second, I'll look it up.
Okay.
Let's see what they're called.
I would be one of those monkey people, and I would use a lot of awesome magic things. Bring back levitation from Morrowind, and I'll be a monkey mage flying around throwing lightning at people like Dragon Ball Z. Like,
that would be amazing. I don't know why I can't remember the name of these stupid things now.
Well, it could be possible. Well, the Sayesi have
Tangmo, that's what it is, sorry.
They've tried to take over Tamriel, so why couldn't... Well, Tamriel could also have a zone of those races where you could start there, or you could also choose to be tiger people or the monkey people, start over there and kind of include it, because why would Tamriel ignore the Sayesi?
Yeah,
and either way, you get to choose the new races, and you start out as a slave or a prisoner who's about to die.
Of course, yeah. That's how it happens, yeah.
Right?
You're gonna be one of the... See, I still can't remember the name of this thing.
Tangmo?
Tangmo, I don't know why I can't ever remember the name of those. Tangmo.
Like Motang, please.
Yeah, I look at the picture of them and I immediately think Vanara from Pathfinder.
The Sayesi aren't even the worst things on Akavir. I mean, the Kapotun, they're said to be led by Rakatosh. There's rumors that he's become a god. Like, that's why they're him
like
Rakatosh.
Demons, aren't they?
No, the Kapotun, you're thinking of the Kamal. The Kamal are the ice demons that thaw out during the summer months and they invade Akavir, but they've also invaded Sky Skyrim, and they took out Windhelm for a time, but they got pushed back. But I'm talking about
The tiger people.
yeah, the Kapotun. They used to be called the Potun, but their leader, who is now called Rakatosh, has said to ascended to become almost even more powerful than Vivek. Some people think he may be Akatosh reborn in mortal flesh, and that's why his name is Rakatosh. He can turn into the red dragon, the biggest dragon that's ever been known to exist. Of course, I don't think anyone from Tamriel has seen this, but this is what we hear coming from Akavir.
Well, if that's the case, then it seems like to me that the Dragonborn and the newly founded Blades have some fucking work to do.
Definitely. I mean, if the Dragonborn doesn't go after the biggest dragon ever to have been seen, he already killed Elduin, who is a...
Like the strongest dragon.
Yeah, and he's linked directly to Akatosh. That's interesting. And dragons come from Akavir originally, so there's just a lot of mystery here. Yeah, it's essentially Dragonland. I think that is what it means. I think that's what it means. So, yeah, there's a lot of bad and interesting mysteries of Akavir, and like anything else, as we know from just traveling around Skyrim, sometimes you can find just in a cave something that is capable of conquering or taking out half of the continent. So who knows how much of that stuff is in Akavir, let alone the stuff that we know about already just from being a continent away. There's so much mystery there, and I think it's the potential for them to have everything that we know of in the Elder Scrolls now, as how deep and how much lore there is. Now you can do that on a whole nother spectrum with Akavir, because it's going to have a whole nother section of lore and of races and stories that are going to closely be linked to Tamriel's.
You know, since they've only really given us tastes of Akavir, it'll also be like a really good opportunity to go deeper into new regional lore, a region that we're not familiar with, and it'll kind of like submerge us, like even more so than Skyrim did, you know, because you're only really there's not much of a difference, I don't really feel like. I know that a lot of people might criticize me for saying that, but between Cyrodiil and Skyrim, they both feel like when you play Oblivion and Elder Scrolls 5, they both feel scarcely populated despite having a lot of people in it, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities, but I feel like if you do like the jungle and the new races, maybe this will give them an opportunity to make it feel like a real world that has a lot of very vibrant and unique characters that you can interact with.
That would be awesome. I would love to see that.
I was gonna say that it would be kind of like a far-fetched idea to see if the tiger people had any commonalities with the Khajiit. I know tigers and cats, they're different, but well, the Khajiit have more of like the rogue assassin. I'm assuming the tiger people are more like warriors, but I'm just wondering, it'd be interesting to see what commonalities there'd be, because they're both feline.
Their language is somewhat similar-ish. I mean,
or
with
even
the
their style of living. And
yeah, that'd be really interesting to see if maybe long ago they came from wherever the Kapotun come from as colonists.
Like they could have had a Pangea situation.
Or maybe I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat, my Elder Scrolls tinfoil hat, and say that you know, maybe the Khajiit are just descendants of the, what's the race?
Kapotun.
The Kapotun were actually like the father race or the mother race, right? And the Khajiit became nomads, and their proximity to the other races, much like the domestication of house cats, shaped the differences that are present between the Kapotun and the Khajiit.
But
that's interesting, yeah.
I kind of lost my trail of thought a little bit with it, but when I mentioned Pangea, it was like, okay, what you said is correct, but how would they get that far away? And maybe there was some kind of situation where the continents divided.
We're talking about possible
pulling it into real life.
Plate tectonics of Nirn. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then not only that, on that same level, the human Akaviri. What about those guys? There's humans living on Akavir. How the hell do they get there? They have a whole nother culture. Maybe what? Oh, the same thing?
Because there's dispute.
No, there's definitely human Akaviri that came over before.
I think so. I do think so, but some people think that they were all consumed by the Sayasi.
Oh, you mean they don't exist anymore? Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if the Sayasi are vampires, consumed could just mean they made them their thralls. You know, they could still be there, and there could be pockets of resistance living in the hills.
Like a subcaste of human Akaviri that only exists as like warriors, slaves.
Yeah, essentially, or
like
even manual labor.
In Rome or something like that.
Could even be, yeah, exactly. I imagine the Sayasi would probably use them as manual labor, as shock troops. Maybe not shock troops, but front line, waste. Like, here you go. go fire and forget. Hopefully you do some damage. At least you're gonna distract them and let our archers fire upon all you guys, including you, because we don't give a shit. Kind of situation.
Now, well, if there's humans still in Akavir, what if you started as a human there? How would that be? Would you be enslaved, or
You'd be a prisoner.
Oh, you'd be a prisoner?
For sure.
And then,
be a descendant of the previously enslaved?
oh yeah, you
from the
could be.
400-year rule.
You could be an Akaviri race, because there's human races in Elder Scrolls already. You know, the Nords, the Imperials. Now we can have the Akaviri added to that list.
Proficiency with katana.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, that would be fucking awesome.
I don't know. If they're all maids, maybe it's like they have proficiency with carrying milk buckets.
Oh, they're
or
probably not made.
servants and...
I want a floor
Strength.
scrubbing skill trait.
Well, I think even the lowly Argonian maid still has the ability to breathe underwater and all their racial
course.
stuff, you know.
Of course.
And that's another thing. An invasion from Akavir could also mean the Kamal, because they've invaded Skyrim before and gotten as far as Windhelm. So the Kamal are the giant ice demons that thaw out, so we'd have to at least hold their invasion back until winter came and they'd freeze. Who even knows what the hell that stuff means? That's what I'm saying. Akavir is so crazy. You have demons that thaw themselves out and invade, and then they freeze themselves again. What practical purpose does that... What motivates them? You know what I mean? They don't apparently hold the land they take over, so are they just barbaric that just go around killing things?
I mean, I would assume so. You know, kind of like the Frost Titans.
And where do they come from? How can't they just be killed when they're frozen? There's a lot of mysteries there. And we know a little bit about Akaviri landscape, but we don't know too much. We know that the Kamal come from way up north, and it's supposed to be such frozen, barren wastelands that people won't even go up there to look for these ice giants when they're frozen. It's such a horrible place that there's other horrors up there that aren't even mentionable from what I understand in the lore. And then there's the Motang Islands, which are known as Monkey Islands, and they're far south in Akavir, it's believed. And it's just an archipelago of more closely linked islands to the actual landmass than the Somerset Isles.
See, that sounds like a blast to me.
Yeah, that sounds like that would be a fun place. And that would go with kind of what we were talking about with the ships and the ship exploration in the last podcast.
Oh, yeah, you're singing my song now.
Yeah, going from island to island, discovering all the new monkey races. And like you said, that would be fucking
you're
awesome.
Visiting the island and then your boat's attacked by monkey pirates.
Swinging to you.
Or
oh,
Tangmo
man.
pirates.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Or you could be the levitating Tangmo mage just floating across this
That's
archipelago.
what I'm saying. Throwing fireballs in my living room. I'd be saying Kamehameha so many times.
That would be a whole badass different Elder Scrolls experience. Just floating as this like badass monkey mage over all these islands, lowering to one, checking it out, going to another one, like not even touching the ground. That would just be fucking cool.
I really do miss levitate. I feel like that was something really cool in Morrowind that I felt like the game kind of suffered a little bit when they didn't put in.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I also feel the way about Mark and Recall. But then, you know, they made fast traveling a lot more user-friendly, so...
Yeah, levitate is a good one. I'm glad they kept... See, that's the thing. They kept the telepathy, and it's a rare spell in Skyrim, and I think it was in Oblivion, too, but why would you take out levitate? They're kind of on the same spectrum in terms of spells. I don't know. I think that's a bad, weird decision to make.
It was probably like an overpowered decision, you know? Like when you can just levitate away from most of your enemies and shoot them with an arrow.
They should have just...
Like I've done multiple times in Morrowind, you know? I can see why that they took it out.
It sounds like creative mode in Minecraft.
Right, yeah, no, exactly. Like that would be...
I mean, I'd love to be able to levitate in real life, but when I'm looking for a challenge in the game, I probably, if it's available, I would be more likely to take the easy way out and then feel guilty about it because I gypped myself on an awesome battle.
But
or
like,
something.
you know, practically, when you're inside a deep cavern filled with Falmer and Dwemer ruins, and you don't know what's ahead of the next turn, you're not gonna go flying through there at Mach 3.
Right.
Because you're gonna take extra damage because you're not gonna see everything.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like there could be a place, but I feel like instead of like just getting rid of it altogether, maybe just nerfing levitation, right? Making it like, okay, even the most powerful levitation spell does not last more than 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Create some sort of tree around that core concept that we're not going to let it be broke, right?
I think it should be in the game still.
WoW has an ability like
and there's a
that.
certain speed like a game speed. Like, you can't sprint equivalent, right? But you can eventually get to the point where your standard movement in the air is the same as your standard movement while walking. Try and just keep a cap on it as opposed to letting it run rampant.
Yeah, and having it in the game still adds a whole other depth to other things, because you can use it, like you said, in that Falmer Cavern. They can't, what is it, they're blind, right? So they can hear well. If you're floating through the air, they're not going to hear you. So you're essentially invisible to them regardless of your sneak skill. You can just bypass a whole room full of enemies, full of Falmer, or use it to steal. Like,
That would
you can
be an
float,
advantage.
you can use it to float across the hallway in the castle into the treasure room, land right in front of the chest, pick it, and then float back out. So no one even hears your horrible low-level sneak skill.
Right. As long as it, within the cap of it won't go over 20 seconds. Like, maximum, if you had your levitation maxed out, however that would work out, like the best levitation spell, you're not going to get more than 20 seconds.
And
Can
then
you
you
really
have cooldown.
accomplish everything you want?
Oh,
in 20
not
seconds?
everything, but there's going to be certain circumstances.
You're going to have to land. You're going to make noise. It's basically going to be kind of like a Mission Impossible experience, right? Because you're going to have to play it. You're going to still have to be sneaky. Just because you can fly doesn't mean you don't have to.
You have to time it perfectly. There could be the perfect circumstances where it could work for you. Other times you're probably thinking it could, and then it doesn't, and then you have to adapt real quick. You're like, oh fuck, now I landed right in front of the dude, or he turned around and I'm floating through the fucking air, and I can't land that quickly because I'm stuck in the levitate for 20 seconds. Imagine that.
What about, like, if they're worried about it being too overpowered, how about you say you just can't use a weapon while levitating? Like, the act of using the spell levitation is one of those ones where you hold your hands on the spell, right? So your hands are like being used to levitate you. Maybe that's a way to bring the power down so that you can bring it back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That actually does make sense. That would be a better way to implement it. They need to listen to these podcasts. That would be pretty cool. So hopefully in the Elder Scrolls 6, we get to see what it's like to levitate in Akavir.
Yes!
Now, there's a few comments we wanted to respond to, so let's do it. So the first one is by Bronoculars. Panda, you can read them because you're looking at the screen.
Bronocular says, it might have referred to the dragons returning. Dragons come from Akavir. Just a thought.
And he's referring to, like we said, that quote at the beginning that we mentioned that was said in Morrowind about an Akaviri invasion. So what do you think about his... I think he makes a pretty damn good point.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it kind of ties into what we've already talked about a little bit. If this Rakatosh character is like some sort of incarnation of Akatosh, and then you have the Dragonborn, who's some sort of incarnation of Talos, right? They are pitted against each other. It sounds like a natural storyline for E6.
Yes.
ES6.
Ooh, imagine if
Solid
Rakatosh... They say that he's linked to Akatosh, and Elduin is too. Maybe he sent the dragons as the first wave of the invasion, thinking that they would win. But then the Dragonborn happened, and he's like, okay, now we have to invade ourselves. Maybe it was his doing the whole time. That would be pretty interesting. I don't think there's been any inclination or rumor that the Kapatun are power-hungry and will conquer people. But I don't know. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think that I like the Dragon Break idea with Alduin. That seems to, like, fit the puzzle a little bit better. Now, what about this Rakatosh character who leads the... What's the name again? I'm sorry?
Kapotun.
Kapotun, right? This guy who leads them. What if he's taking advantage of the chaotic return of Alduin, right? He sees that it's possible for the Dragonborn to slay Alduin. Maybe it's time for him to make his move to defeat the Dragonborn before the Dragonborn can defeat him.
Yeah. He'll see it as a preemptive strike.
Lynn the Great 10 says, I definitely don't buy that TES6 would be set in Akavir. I don't think that fighting the Stormcloaks in Skyrim was enough to deplete the Empire's army. Skyrim is only one not very densely populated region. That would be like saying if the US went to war with Kansas, I don't think fighting Kansas would deplete the US army.
Okay, so there's been a few comments about this one, but my response to you, while I can see your point, there's two things. The Empire is not as strong as you think, first of all. And second of all, they just got done fighting a war known as the Great War, where they lost this Great War, and they were fighting against the Thalmor, and they felt so punked out that they allowed their religion to be altered by the Thalmor, just banning Telos from all religion. So yeah, they probably lost a lot of troops, a lot of assets, and a lot of time fighting the Great War. Now there's the Skyrim Civil War that they have to hurry up and solve, otherwise the Thalmor may get even more pissed off at them because they can't keep their little empire in check. So yeah, by the time after the Civil War, they're probably don't have that many troops, they probably don't have the motivation, and then the Emperor is dead. He was assassinated, so who knows what kind of state that left the Empire in. They're probably not going to do a good job defending against the Akaviri invasion.
Also, Lynn, I would say this. I bet you there's a lot of people in Kansas that would disagree with you. Maybe you should, like, network with them. I bet you they think that they'd take a chunk out of the U.S. Army. Talk to some of the armed militiamen.
What do you think, Sam? Do you pretty much agree with all this kind of stuff? You think that the Empire couldn't do such a good job after all this war?
No, and I wanted to add in, how are they supposed to when they've already lost troops and then their little villages still have to deal with the undead or hag ravens and stuff, so they're losing people all over.
It's a really hectic time in Tamriel right now, and then you gotta think, when you're traveling through Cyrodiil, when you're traveling through Morrowind and Skyrim, just how many people did you see? Do you think there's less than 200 people living in Skyrim? And who knows how many people live in Akavir and how many troops are gonna be invading? It seems like Tamriel is almost in a state of where Men and Mer are endangered. I mean, if you take the literal population that you see in the game, there's not many people.
Yeah.
And Akavir is looking at this saying, hey, look, there's like 2,000 people on this big giant continent. Why are we wasting our time? And it's because people and the Men and Mer of Tamriel are so powerful that they've actually been defending themselves against all these crazy, chaotic, world-eating things. People here are strong, and there's a lot of power to be seen in the Men and Mer of Tamriel that even Akavir holds off. They're probably hordes of people, but I don't think that there's been this amount of people forever, because in the lore there's been invasions to Akavir and so on and so forth. But so maybe in the 4th era we're near the fall of Men and Mer, at least in Tamriel, which is a sad thing to think.
Yeah, maybe we've come full circle and the time of Men and Mer is over now.
Yeah, and now there's the time of Akavir or something. Who knows? It's really weird to think about that, but I mean, like I said, there's not many people in the games.
Thank you for the question, Lynn the Great 10. Voxdalian says, if it's an Akaviri invasion, it's probably going to be set on the east coast of Tamriel. Black Marsh is unlikely, so it'd be Morrowind again or elsewhere. But both of those aren't particularly good targets for a coastal invasion, except maybe the northern shore of Morrowind, while Valenwood or Skyrim would be good targets. You know, I would just have to say, if you have a incarnation of a god dragon leading your people, and like vampiric snake warriors, I think that you could probably attack anywhere you wanted to, and you'd probably do okay. If I was the Akaviri and I really wanted to strike a death blow that would allow me to conquer Tamriel altogether, I would probably choose to attack the Somerset Isles and bring the Hammer of Pain down on the Thalmor, and then sweep in and defeat the Empire right after that.
That would be a good move, and the Sayesi being serpents, I would imagine them docking far offshore where their ships are way out of sight of the High Elves, jumping into the water, swimming under the water at night, and then thousands and thousands of Sayesi troops are just storming the beaches of the Somerset Isles overnight without any notice. No preparation, nothing.
Sounds terrifying.
I think that I don't know. How is the climate in Black Marsh?
Inhospitable to anyone but Argonians, mostly.
It's mostly like swampland.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, possibly the Sayesi would be able to get through there.
That's a good point.
No problem at all.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That would be a good staging ground, because yes, some of the other races can go to Black Marsh, but the core of Black Marsh, which is like 60 to 70% of it, only the Argonians can live there because of how hazardous it is. There's poisonous gases. There's a lot of there's flesh flies that literally eat the flesh off soft-fleshed people. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff there. The Argonians, they don't have to worry too much about the flesh flies because of their scales. But yeah, it's a crazy place to go. And the Sayesi, if they could just blend right into all that and just use it as a staging ground, they can just spread off and go wherever they want to from there. Because if people want to invade their staging ground, they're probably going to lose most of their troops before they get to their base.
Yeah.
And then the Sayesi can just
And the Argonians, the native ones, are going to defend their homelands.
That could be a good inclination that we might see the Elder Scrolls 6 Black Marsh if they invade there. But yeah, like you said, they can invade anywhere. Somerset Isles would be the perfect attack. It would be a good place to go to too for the Elder Scrolls 6. Any of the regions we haven't seen really, or a combination of the ones that we have seen. If they're gonna do Morrowind or Skyrim again, they'd probably have to do it to where you have multiple regions and not just that one region again. I don't think they'd do a straight repeat. They'd have to add them together.
Elder Scrolls 6, Nern.
Yes, that's where it should go. Now we're gonna end this podcast. It's getting pretty pretty late here where we are, but I want to just let you guys know, don't forget to tune in this week because I'm doing that Q&A, Ask Me Anything question. So if you want me to respond to your questions, leave that comment below because I'll be doing that video here in a couple days. And anything you guys want to say as we wrap this up?
Stay faithful, Elder Scrolls Nation.
Thank you. Come again.
Stand strong, stand united, Elder Scrolls Nation. And as always, thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye, have a great time.